Welcome back to Two in the Hand, folks. It's been levied at us that we don't listen to the feedback of our viewers, and we just don't accept that. It's been suggested that I can't grow a proper beard, so this week we've brought somebody who can, Mr. Owen Foley.
Evening, gents. How are you?
There we go. Theme music. Welcome back, folks. We're going to start this episode, or any episode that we've got a guest on, by thanking Owen for coming on. We sincerely thank you, Owen, and you're very, very much welcome here today on Two in the Hand. Thanks for coming on, mate. It's much appreciated. Those of you, the more observant of the birders among you will have noticed that Peter's not here. Peter's been drafted back into the zoo. Not everything stops during COVID era. He's in and he's feeding lions and tigers right now, and that's why he couldn't be with us. But he sends his apologies, and he welcomes you here also, Owen. So what we're doing today, folks, is we're covering a couple of different topics. We're going to look at things like Cape Clear Island. We're going to talk about social media and how it has impacted birding. And then we're going to get into the meat and gravy of the show. And what we're going to do is we're going to beg Owen to tell us about his birding in Finland. Anybody who follows him on Twitter is going to know just how gripping the shots he uploads are, and how, from an Irish perspective, the birds he sees on a daily basis are absolutely stunning. And if we're nice to him, will you tell us about that, Owen? You will, I assume.
I'll do my best. Absolutely.
Very good, very good. So, for those of you who don't know Owen's been birding in Ireland since his youth. Since
I could walk, really. But myself and my brother, our dad was a birder, so as soon as we could walk, he was dragging us out, walking around the fields of Ashburn or the Phoenix Park where my grandparents lived, and watching birds. So we were just indoctrinated. We never had a choice, never had a hope. No.
Entrapment of the highest order there. That's what that is. So also Owen is the founder, and he also runs the Rare and Scarce Birding Group in Ireland. I would be remiss if I didn't mention how fantastic that has been for birding in Ireland, and it's actually going to bring us on to our first topic, which is the advent of social media and how that impacts birding. So before we get into talking about the group, Owen, and how good that's been, I'm going to pose you the question: do you think that birding, or twitching in particular, has been affected by social media? You're kind of one of the few people who, like, you're a little bit older than me. Your generation would have been the kind of between two worlds, if that makes sense. You would have grown up without social media, then transitioned into it, and you'll have experience of seeing birding and twitching in Ireland with and without it. So what do you think the main changes are, or the difference have
been? Certainly, I mean, it's just so much easier to get information now. Like you said, I did transition. I was one of those young fellas who used to plow all of his 50p's and £1 coins into payphones, listening to bins to get bird news, so social media has made it just so much easier to get bird information out there. Mm-hmm. And the internet in general has made it easier to get information out there. I mean, if you think about it, the amount of people who now get their foreign gen for going on birding trips from like websites and trip reports published on blogs and things compared to buying books, it's probably changed massively. I think that's where I get a lot of mine these days. So it's been exceptional in terms of information. and from so many different sources, and all searchable and all trackable, and free helps. So yeah, I'm a fan of it for the most part, I have to say. Are there negatives to it? Probably. I think we could probably all agree. But mostly I think the negatives are the negatives that have been there all along. It's just people who disagree with each other.
Yeah.
People who just don't want to get along. And once you accept that as a given, there's nothing to lose engaging.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think social media, everybody, I suppose, as somebody who's involved with marketing, everybody says to me that social media has changed our lives. It's changed how we live our lives. I would disagree. I think it's essentially some sort of I suppose, a complementing tool. What we're going to do, we now do via social media. It's increased the speed and the ease at which we can do it. But by and large, it hasn't changed our behaviour. Would be my opinion on it. Getting back to birds, I do have to say, as somebody who's got into the game in the social media age, I'd say, Brian, even you might have not been birding. You might have been birding when social media wasn't about.
Well, when I started, it was the Twitter accounts, like your East Coast Nature Reserve or Nature Reserve, Twitter and that kind of thing. So, and your Wexford News and
Claire
as well.
Yeah. So for those not familiar with, I'm sure you all are, but essentially what you have there is essentially little siloed accounts corresponding to county locations or counties in Ireland that have a good birder presence, and then what would have happened was that they would tweet out the news of birds, and it's actually a very, very kind of interesting transition. Maybe a year ago, we actually saw a lot of those accounts closing down. Because there's kind of no more need for them, and there are a couple of reasons for that, but I'll put it down to two. I wouldn't say there's no more need for them. I think that's a bit cold. It's a little bit clinical, but I think there are more popular ways of reporting news now, and they're more efficient and more effective. And the two ways that everyone in Ireland uses are the Rare and Scarce birding group and the WhatsApp group. And the functionality that's built into those two platforms, WhatsApp and Facebook, has just made reporting news that bit easier and that bit more accessible. All you have to do is be added to or join those respective groups, and then you've got access to all the I suppose up-to-date news, and you have up-to-date access to it as well. So as soon as it comes in, you get the notification and you can kind of make your decision regarding that bird as it happens. I think that's fantastic. So what I may have just kind of undercut you a bit there. I may have just kind of took away everything you were going to say about it, Owen, but can we go and talk about the group? You don't mind?
Absolutely, yeah, far away.
What inspired you to start the Rare and Scarce birding group on Facebook?
It was a long time coming, actually, believe it or not. I suppose I first kind of started thinking about how we actually, as a country, as Ireland needed something along these lines as far back as 2005. Mm-hmm. At the time, there's a website called Bird Forum, and lots of people are still active on that today. And 2005 was when the great spotted woodpeckers started to colonize. It's when the first juveniles were picked up down around Newcastle, and we all kind of went, that's a bit weird, juvenile great spots in September, was it, I think, or October. It's a little bit on the early side for your traditional Scandinavian or whatever migrant turning up in some woods somewhere. We all started to suspect that they were, and of course, inevitably we saw more and more and more, to the point now where they're common. But at the time, it was very obvious that Bird Forum was very Britain-centric. They didn't give a damn about great spotted woodpeckers turning up in Ireland. And in general, because our two countries are so different, and not just in terms of culture, but also just in what birds turn up and what's rare and what's not rare. You often get this case where birds that are turning up in Ireland which are absolutely fantastic for us, just don't blip on the radar for them. And we just kind of accepted that at the time, because at the time there was a sub forum for Ireland and it was kind of used, so I didn't do anything about it. But then like a couple of years ago, two things happened in kind of quick succession. And the first one was, there is a kind of a rare birds of Britain and Ireland Facebook group,
okay,
which is again almost entirely Britain centric. It's run by British birders. It's from their perspective more than anything else. So mega rare birds that turn up in Ireland are of interest to them, but they're not massively interested if we have a red-throated pipit or a red-flanked bluetail or something. So you don't see it, and a lot of Irish birders are in it, but they don't post there.
Mm-hmm.
And on one of the rare occasions I saw someone post that, it was actually Cian Cardiff. He posted photos of glossy ibis and ring-billed gull, which were both there along the east coast. And within a very quick amount of time, some random British bird, I don't know him, came on and just kind of belittled the post. Just these aren't rare. And I said, maybe we need something of our own. And then there was a very old forum in Ireland, the Irish Bird Network, the IBN. I think Peter has mentioned it in a previous episode, which is it's the age of dinosaurs type of thing. It's an old email only forum, no photos, no videos, no attachments, nothing. And it has been dying a death for years. And there was a kind of a thread every now and again. Someone would try and give it a shock and try and kickstart it again. And someone was saying, "Oh, isn't it terrible? It's gone downhill," and this was the fault of certain birders out there. And I raised the point that realistically, every form of that nature has died. AOL cancelled all of those kind of email forums on its servers a decade previously.
Mm-hmm.
And that everything has shifted to, like you said, these social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and I'm a dinosaur myself now. Don't even ask me what's coming down the line, TikTok or whatnot. So I just said, right, that's it. We need a Facebook group or something that will work for us, that will allow us to discuss rare birds, in particular because that's my interest, rare birds. And so I just started up, and this is where we are now. It's quite popular. It's constantly growing. It's constantly used, and people seem to enjoy it. So very keep it going.
Yeah, very much so. How many members have we got now on?
There's about 1,600 members in there now.
Fantastic.
We're both myself and Connor are admins. We run it, and the aim is to kind of encourage there's lots of aims. Create a healthy kind of space where people can talk without the kind of arguments and stuff that other forums have had in the past, but also to kind of encourage more people in. And I think that means that you have to accept people who don't have a lot of experience and try and encourage their interest. As I think I said to Brian on Mizzen Head about 2 years ago when the group was starting up, that at the time I think there was about 300, and I said if 1% of that 300
keeps it up
to buy a pair of binoculars and a telescope and learn their stuff and are working headlands in October along with the rest, that would be a brilliant result. And now 1,600, I'll knock it down. I'll say 0.5%. If 0.5% of these people get enough of an interest to go out and look for birds and enjoy birds, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good aim. And in previous episodes, we've kind of discussed maybe I suppose strategies is probably the most appropriate word for growing the hobby in Ireland, for getting more birders out there.
And in fairness, every couple of weeks and months, you see different people commenting and things like that. So
exactly,
it could, yeah.
There's people interested, and you know, and especially the big birds. I mean, so that's always going to be the case. Big birds attract attention. So if you look like in the past week with belted kingfisher and little swift and the kestrel,
lesser kestrel,
there's probably somewhere between 700 and 1,000 people looked at those posts there in the last thing, and lots have commented on it, because those are the things that attract attention, I think, for everyone.
I'd say if you even go back to like the brown booby and things like that, it probably would have been even
more.
Well,
that was just mental. I mean, that was insane. You know, you had everyone and their mother just walking on the beach taking pictures. It was fantastic. I mean, that's the kind of thing that can attract people in, I think, and that's where you encourage them.
Yeah, I think actually, just when you mentioned the brown booby there, I think Connor, your brother, he posted into the group the footage that was originally taken by the little girl on the beach. So like she's sitting reading a book on the beach, and the brown booby lands beside her, and then she just turns around with the camera and she's like, "Oh, hello," and like essentially looking at it eye level. I remember seeing that clip and being like, "Wow, this is amazing." But as it was.
Isn't that incredible? Like, I mean, I think, you know, you talk about social media. I prefer to think of it in terms of social technology.
Yeah.
Because the hardware that has come along, which has now allowed for so much of this on this level. I mean, if you, I say this to everyone else, I'm really into kind of like my phone scoping photos now. If you had told me or anyone else back in 2005 that someday you'd have a phone in your pocket that can take, I don't know, 108 megapixel photos, massive resolution video, and send it from the field and edit it from the field and put it out to 20 different platforms so that everyone can see what you're seeing, or even, you know, video live from the field, like what you're seeing, if you wanted to. No one would have believed that. No. So I mean, it's absolutely incredible.
I don't know what I do without the phone scoping. I swear by it. Like, I don't like carrying a camera. I do carry a camera, but it's just so much easier when you're walking around the likes of TAC and places like that. Yeah. Where it's bad enough carrying a scope and wellies and bag.
You should put the wellies on, Brian.
You know what I mean.
As opposed to,
you'd be knackered like by the time you get out to the patches. Whereas carrying a camera as well, whereas you could just you have your phone with you anyway and just having the adapter on. It's just so easy. Like,
yeah,
I'm a complete minimalist when it comes to bird. I mean, I want to be as unencumbered as possible. I mean, if I can retire someday to some Mediterranean island and walk in nothing but hot pants and sandals and a pair of pins, I'm very happy. But I mean, years ago, I went to Boston, and Rob Vaughan, you know, had a big, I don't know, it was a 500 or 600 mil lens anyway, and he said, "Look, I'm not using this for the next few weeks. Take it with you, and you know, enjoy all the yanks." And I said, "Sure, why not?" And bloody hell, the weight of it! What, you know, when you're hiking around in woods in the middle of summer with bloody deer flies and mosquitoes going at you with this thing. Never again. I mean, my wife's big into photography. I'll sometimes steal her camera if I'm kind of going to a dump for gulls or something, but otherwise it's just the phone. That's all I use.
Yeah.
And like, you know, it's not as if the shots are bad anymore. They're
no,
actually quite
like
good.
I actually think the shots I get with my phone are better than on my camera.
Yeah, I would agree. I believe Fionn Moore put the belted kingfisher shots out. I think his shots were phone scoped as well, and they're fantastic quality. I remember
Unreal, yeah.
Reading a couple of comments there saying that people hadn't seen as good of photographs of a belted kingfisher in the Western Pale, like, and to think that, as you say, that's taken with a mobile device is really something.
And we're not jealous. None of us are jealous. That's the
I'm well jealous. I am incredibly jealous.
I am fucking jealous. Yeah.
I'm incredibly jealous. Oh, well, no worry. Hopefully, it'll be a long stayer. I think you hit a really interesting point there about I suppose social technology and how that has impacted us. It's made it easier in a couple of ways. So I've said, okay, there's an increased availability of information, but also more and more apps, more and more products are coming out there that actually kind of help you ID birds. If you're a novice or you're a beginner, I mean, there are apps like Merlin Bird ID that are built into your phone. You can download expansion packs and search through entire essentially textbooks of data, using an algorithm that'll throw up the likely bird that you're looking at. So if we're talking about kind of tools that have made birding easier, then that has to be worth a mention as well. And so does, I think I actually saw you tweet a couple of months ago, and you might have liked the tweet or retweeted it or something, but Swarovski are bringing out almost like a...
I was just going to say, it's out, yeah.
Is it out?
These bins that take photos and send it directly through that Merlin app to identify. I mean, I think...
Gimmicky.
We all... No, I mean, we people had kind of said, well, listen, things were going to go kind of that way, 10 years ago. Sooner or later, someone would invent, but it was in a joking way. People will invent the scope that takes a photo of the bird and identifies it for you, type of thing. And it does seem to be the case that things are going that way.
I don't like that idea.
Well, you see, the thing about it is, right, and I'd call into question, I suppose, the degree of accuracy of some of these apps. All right, so if you mentioned the term gimmick there, okay, but what you're calling a gimmick could be a very, very useful tool for somebody who's going out in the field for the first time.
Well, yeah, that's true, yeah.
So well, look, as opposed to...
I approve of anything that will get people into it. I mean, my only issue with them is that I think they're like 25 millimeter objective or something. So as a pair of bins goes, they're not for me. But I mean, anything that gets people in to the hobby, the better. I mean, that pays off in absolutely every way you can imagine. More people, more conservation, more birds found. More social interaction.
But do you think with the binocular that identifies? Do you think if you're even, like as John said, like starting off, it could be a good tool, but when do you stop using it?
4 months, 3 days, and 8 hours into your work. You just say, no, that's enough for me. I've spent €5,000 on a binocular, and I'm not going to use it ever again. Let's just push it away, and then I'll transition to my €3,000 worth of binoculars. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
But
accept your point.
I mean, all change is always bad, isn't it? I mean, when you think about it.
Yeah.
What is the right way to start birding? Because I don't think there is one. I mean, mine was certainly very different. I mean, I saw the episode there you had where you had someone saying, right, you have to have a notebook. You have to draw. You have to have your notebook. You have to draw everything into it, and you have to note everything down. You have to note how many clouds are in the sky and whatnot. But I mean, I had that pushed on me as well, but it wasn't for me. I didn't find it useful. I found that I can't draw for worth a damn, and B, I was spending so much time looking at my notebook that I wasn't looking at the bird, and so I dropped it. I said, no, that's not for me. And instead, I learned just by watching, and particularly I found that watching a bird and how it moves, its behavior was brilliant for identifying birds rather than just...
But I think the thing with notebooks is, though, I don't keep them, but I can see in the future, like years down the line, it would be nice to look back, and see exactly what you saw. Or if a certain weather pattern popped up or something, you could say, well, the last time there was...
You blog as well. I blog. I mean, there's no reason why a blog can't do... I think a blog can be even more functional than any of that, because you can embed those weather patterns from, you can do that. You can get the actual You can embed it into your page. You can add tags, which means that you can search for it. You don't have, I mean, it's all well and good having a notebook on a shelf and say, oh yeah, I had a strike in whatever year. You still have to remember whatever year that was and what notebook it was in. If you want to go find it, you can
have
blog.
Have you tell me you haven't? Tell me you've heard of a bullet journal. Tell me.
Again, you see, this is the thing. I've no idea what a bullet journal is, but I don't think there's a right way or wrong way to get into it.
I would agree.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Whatever works for you, whatever you enjoy.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah.
If you want to use a blog, if you want to take photos, if you want to draw, if that's what you go for it.
Yeah.
But
I think
you don't stop enjoying the birds.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point that you kind of summed up on there. To use your example of Rob Vaughan there, now one of Ireland's premier bird artists, I'm sure a notebook and sketches were where he started, and so it's different strokes for different folks. I found early on
he's one of those horrifically talented people that you don't. You don't hang around with Rob for too long when he's drawn because you'd be sick. He's
so good.
He's so fast and it's just down on paper and you're just out.
Would you go away?
Whereas I could spend 10 years with a photograph in front of me and it would still look like my 2-year-old drew it. I mean,
try tracing it, Owen.
Yeah.
That's what I did for Junior So Dark.
Yeah, no, but yeah, it's a great point. Rob's very, very good. I actually have a snowy owl that he did. So what I did was Vanessa's my fiance's favorite bird is the snowy owl, or Hedwig as she refers to it. So I bought her a painting by Rob for her birthday one year, and that has been on the wall in my office ever since. God love her. I think you're going to away with that one a wee bit, but if she watches this, I'm in trouble.
The lighting's lovely in here.
Yeah. No, there's a window in that other room that will fade it, all right? Just leave it exactly where it is, okay? Trust me on this. No, I got away with it, but Okay, folks, a slight technical hitch there. Brian forgot to plug his charging cable into my laptop in Monaghan, which is 25 kilometers from where he lives, so we can blame him for it. Okay, it was nobody but Brian's fault. Myself and Owen are beyond criticism in this regard.
You're outside my 5K, John, so that's what I can.
No, yeah, because that'd bother you. Anyway, so I think we were just finishing up on. It's kind of, I think the sentiment we were expressing there was that it's kind of different strokes for different folks when getting into birding. I myself find notebooks quite useful getting into it, but not in the traditional sense. What I did with my notebook was that I just went out every day and kept a list of every species that I saw for that particular day. And that
I used to do that too, yeah.
Did you? That meant that to identify everything that day and just help me sharpen up a little bit. I find that very, very useful. But that's not how most people would use their notebooks. I never sketched. I never did any of that stuff because I just couldn't. When I say I just couldn't, I'm not a particularly bad artist, but I'm no Rob Vaughan, shall we say, folks. So thus far we've covered things like how useful social media or social technology, as Owen says, can be for getting people into birding and bringing them together. And that's something I want to talk a little bit more about, because in previous episodes we have discussed with other people how do you go about getting people interested in birding? How do you go about welcoming them into the brotherhood or the sisterhood, whatever you want to call it, whatever's politically correct term for it today. And I think one fantastic tool for that is Owen's group. So what we're going to talk about now is, I suppose, the sense of community that has been fostered and can be fostered by the Rare and Scarce, has been fostered by the Rare and Scarce birding group and can be fostered by Facebook groups and things like that. So do you want to give us your insight on that, Owen, or your opinion on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose I had good references to look at when starting it up. So, like I said, there was a Rare Birds of Britain and Ireland group.
Mm-hmm.
And, what you see the admins doing there is exactly what I do. They just post news.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just fodder. You don't expect every rare bird to start off a thread, but you post enough, and eventually, you know, someone will start talking about something that catches their interest. And especially, like I said, the big birds, they tend to always get some level of chat and response and whatnot. Then there's some of the more active things. So, for example, when I moved to Finland, there was one Finnish forum I was aware of, and there's a birder who is a former meteorologist who routinely posts weather forecasts when he sees, you know, good bird conditions on the horizon. That being his expertise, and you know, that's something I said, well, that's a good idea, you know, because that's something that people learning the craft need to know, that everything you see is related to the weather, and you should be looking at the weather to determine what you want to see. So that's something I do every week. Just give a little forecast for the weekend, see if anything's on the horizon, and that's really easy to do as well. And if you've been around long enough, you kind of learn, you know, what you would expect to turn up in southeasterlies in October or September and whatnot. So, like I said, you know, there was a lot of inspiration out there already, and it was just a case of applying it. And then on top of that, my focus in birding has always been finding my own birds rather than running around twitching them.
You say that with a list of what, 390?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, fair point.
You have to twitch to get a list of 390.
But then I did work for 10 years. So, you know, I mean, it's a bit hard not to stumble into things. But
you see, that's how he gets you, Owen. McCluskey's just down there hiding behind that frame, and he's like, he lulls you into a false sense of security, and then there's that uppercut, a wee jab. You never expect it, you never see it coming.
Cool. But yeah, so, you know, so one of the things I like to try and encourage people to go out looking for their own birds, because you can, you know, especially when you start to build up numbers and you can see people who are in areas where some of the more established birders might not be. You know, we have members out in West Donegal and Mayo and Sligo and stuff, and it has happened that they're posting. So, you know, I think one of the most obvious was one member posted during the summer influx of rosy starlings. He had one in his garden that we wouldn't have known about probably otherwise, if not for that gentleman taking the interest. So we keep track of that, and we just do every month we do a little poll. You know, what's the best bird found by a member of the group, and that gets a lot of attention and activity as well, and people seem to enjoy that. So we've kept that going as well.
Yeah, everybody wants to win the golden bin zone. That's just it. You know, if you like, it'd be my luck that I'd find a rare now. Okay, I could find a Palace's warbler in Monaghan now. And,
in your 5K, John.
Within my 5K in Monaghan.
Yeah. That might do it.
No, it wouldn't. How?
This November, it would.
Ah, jeez.
Well, I probably would, because the rest haven't been group members, have they?
Oh, good point. Yeah.
I mean, Palace's warbler is it.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah.
You know, I saw the episode you did with Vic on, and Vic was on and talking about Vega Gull, looking up at him lovingly from the side of the camera, you know, and I felt like, Vic, no, go find the Palaces. You'll feel a lot better about yourself than
the Vega Gull was good though.
Yeah, the Vega's quality, but I don't know, something about the Palace. I don't know. There's something. Do you know it has that certain je ne sais quoi? It just has. You know, you look at it, it's just.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, nor would I really. But in the pictures, it's really cute. All right, that's what I'm trying to say, folks.
I don't know if it's a generational thing, but I mean, I've always been kind of thinking of these kind of what I call the old school rarities. You know, sometimes you see things popping up like you know, Vega Gull or some obscure new split or something, and it's just like, yeah, okay.
Maltonies. Although I'd love to find the first
Nice,
Maltonies.
nice, fine, but at the same time, then something like a Palace's Warbler pops up, and you're like, oh, yes,
exactly, yeah, I get that.
That's the good stuff there.
Yeah. So that's actually two really good tools, I think, that you've employed there to keep people engaged and to foster that sense of community. You've got the golden bins that everybody engages with by casting their votes, and also the Friday forecast, which I have to say I really look forward to getting, because to be blunt, it means I don't have to go out and look at the weather on. So I really appreciate that you've been summarized nicely for me. So that's really, really cool. And I think we've spoken maybe for the last 15 to 20 minutes about the group, and everything that we said has been positive, and I would say that it's a very, very useful tool, and well done for setting it up, Owen, because it's great. Something I certainly enjoy, and I know Brian enjoys and Peter enjoys as well. So it's certainly.
It's funny. One thing, the only reason I kind of at the start was posting it was because I was always petrified of Facebook, because
you were groomed.
Very, very few of my friends, like outside of Burden, know anything about it. So I was always afraid to even like posts and comment and things like that. So the fact that it's a kind of a closed group as well.
Is that all? I thought you were going to say you were convinced to vote for Trump or something.
This is worse, isn't it?
For having me as post-Trump guest, by the way. Cheers.
Yeah.
No, it's a safe space. It's a great environment. Yeah. We can all gather together and let our weird out, folks. So yeah, join the group if you haven't already. We're going to move on to the second topic, because I'm conscious of the fact the time's rolling on here and we've got a lot to get through. And I know I'm really eager to get to the end of this, and you'll see why in what we discussed there. But what we're going to talk about first is Cape Clear, okay? And the reason that I want to highlight Cape Clear is because, of course, we all love it. It's fantastic. It's a famous island for those of you outside Ireland, and it's one of those areas that's just special. You hear us often talking about Tecumseh and how you pick up all the rare birds. Well, Cape Clear is one of those islands that you step onto and you're filled with a sense of joy, or a sense of anticipation, for me anyway, because you never know what's going to be under the next bush or what could pop out in front of you. There's also a great sense of community on Cape as well. The locals love to see birders coming on, and with the observatory there, Steve Wing is always very, very welcoming and accommodating. So we think he deserves a little bit of a mention now, and we want to specifically talk about Steve's upcoming book. And Owen's a good man to talk about that, because you've done a review on it, and you're one of the only people that have a review out there. I haven't actually got to read the book yet, Owen, so I'd really appreciate you kind of telling us a little bit about it and what it covers and stuff like that. Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, it's an obvious labor of love on Steve's part. You could really think of it. I don't know if any of you were around, kind of like when the omnibus Cork Bird Report came out back in the mid-noughties, or if you've seen it since. So in that sense, Cork Bird Reports had died for a couple of decades, so they did something like 93 to 2003, something like that. And in this way, it's quite similar. There was a previous kind of natural history of Cape Clear, covering up into the mid-20th century, and Steve has now kind of updated this again to the modern era. It's multi-author, so each chapter is by a different author, a different expert in the relative field, be it the history of the island, the invertebrates, the plants, the cetaceans, and of course the birds, and a lot of stuff there on the birds. I mean, you're talking some serious data crunching having gone on. Serious statistics and whatnot. I think from my perspective, Rare Birds is a chapter which is kind of Rare Birds Day by Day. I don't know if you've ever seen that book.
I have it, yeah. Class.
Yeah. There's a book. It's one of those ones that if you're actually in the obs on Cape Clear, you inevitably pull off the shelf and you want to see what was around Britain and Ireland on such and such a day. And Steve has replicated this for Cape. So what birds have turned up day by day, over the past few decades, and it's just excellent. And what I find amazing about it is that if you were a young birder who wanted to, start looking for his own birds, you look at this, and it's not October, it's September. That's all I'll say. You buy the book, read it, you'll see what I mean. Go in September. And
September's probably better, yeah. Because I think I've only been on Cape once in September. And a lot of people were laughing at us because me and Jer, we twitched a nectarine warbler on Cape. We specifically went just for a nectarine warbler on the day. It was only a one-day trip, and we went on and we came off with nectarine, turtle dove, yellow-browed warbler, red start, found a red start. We had one other scarce that I can't think of. Could have been a black red or something. But it was a really, really good day. So, and again, that was only a day trip. Who knows what we might have dug out in 4 or 5 days, maybe, So
absolutely. Yeah, it's an excellent book. I think it's due to be published in hard copy in around Christmas time, and it's available for pre-order, as far as I'm aware, still. So definitely one. If you've ever been to Cape, and I've rarely met anyone who's been to Cape who doesn't fall in love with the place. Definitely one to have.
Yeah, I'd actually add to that and say that even if you haven't been to Cape and you'd like to learn and you've got an interest in the natural world, cetaceans, botany, all those different things, and especially birds, it'd be a great one to pick up, and it'd be a nice way to show that you're supporting Steve, the OBS, and Birdwatch Ireland and everything that goes with that too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a link, and we're either going to, if I figure out how to, folks, I'm going to include the link across the screen. If not, it'll be in the description of this video below, and we'd all appreciate it if you could click through and have a look. It'll be the perfect gift for that birder or naturalist in your life this Christmas. Let's moving swiftly on. No, in all seriousness, Cape is somewhere that I really think we should spend another minute or two on. What's your prevailing memory of Cape, Owen?
Oh God, where do you start? I suppose two actually stick out. So, like I think most people's first visit to Cape tends to stick there because inevitably most of them will have gone for a bird, I think. Or for a specific reason. For us, it was a specific reason. I went down in 1999, the end of August, for a week of sea watching. Back in the 90s, big shears were really, really regular off Cork. I mean, you could go and see them on any given day, and this was the case when we were there. We were there for a week, and even on days when it was sunny and not very good, you had like triple figure counts of Corys and greats and stuff going by. So for myself and a good friend of mine, Kieran Smith, complete novices when it came to seabirds. I think we walked off the island with about 6 new seabirds, including, that
might have been why you had so many greats and Corys.
Including our first Fiat petrel on the 18th. So on our first sea watching trip, basically we scored, and it was still big then, I mean, in
McCluskey ruined the species.
The real kind of run of them happened in the noughties when people kind of realized that they were coming to the bridges, but in the late 90s they were still quite desirable, and there was quite a bit of envy in the pub that evening when we wandered in. Sunburned, by the way. It was in a northwesterly in scorchio weather. We wandered in like 2 lobsters, with this Fiat in the bag. So that was one. Then I suppose coming back to palaces, I got my first palaces on Cape. Right at the end.
Was it 2003?
No, it would have.
It wasn't the one after the bobolink, no.
2005 or 2006.
Or was it? Right.
Right at the end of October. I think it was like the 30th or 31st of October, really late. And, at that stage, no one was going for it except me. So I managed to make the last boat in the evening and got onto the pier. And it was in Cotters. But as I got off the boat, I saw Steve over beside the shop. And I put my bins up and he was there holding the bag.
No way.
Waving the bag at me, and that just starts you sprinting. So straight over to him, and so there it was in the hand. Beautiful little thing.
Bloody hell!
Is that's the tip or the tick bag, isn't it?
The tick bag. Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know. I think it was 20 quid into the tick jar that evening.
For those of you who don't know, any birder who twitches the island of Cape Clear, you make a €20 donation to the observatory each time. Brian, you're gonna have to start doing that the odd time. You know what I mean?
But
I need to start connecting with stuff.
I absolutely suffered for that one because it was so late in the season that nothing was open. So I basically starved to death for about like 16 hours until the next morning when the shop opened, and I managed to get like a Snickers or something to keep me alive.
We can relate quite
very similar happened, yeah.
Well, no, I don't know if we've told the story, but we certainly plan to tell the story in a bit more detail, so I'm going to kind of gloss through it, folks. But the news came out of a Humes warbler, and myself, Brian, and Jared Murray kind of raced down the road, and I mean absolutely raced. We made it in
sticking to the speed limit, though.
Yeah, oh yeah. Jared was driving, so no, we broke every speed limit. That's Gerard Murray of I don't know his name. No, Jared, we drove responsibly down the road, but we made it just in time. I mean, literally, the boat had started to move away from.
I had 1 foot on the boat and 1 foot on the pier, waiting for you to come on. Like.
Yeah, it was fantastic. But like you, we didn't realize that everything was shut down because it was the off season. So we rock up, and Steve, out of the goodness of his heart, Steve Wing, he made us a fantastic curry and let us stay in the obs with him. Yeah. And we ended up having a great time. And then the next day, we had an absolute, like, for me, a magical encounter. It was in a place called the Nordy Wood, and you kind of have to go down into a stream bed, folks. So you're in like a little valley that's overgrown, and you're standing in the middle of this water course. And what happened was, basically, after 4 or 5 minutes, the bird popped up in front of us. We got fantastic views of it, and then we were even lucky enough to get a kind of comparison. Like in this small bush to the right, we had the Humes here and the yellow-browed here just below it, to just kind of get how kind of washed out it was, and see the little bits of differences there. So it was a great time, wasn't it, Brian? You didn't see that. You were off killing the woodcock, weren't you? Yeah, you killed that woodcock.
No, out of the goodness of my heart, I said I'll go back up and get signal and put the news out that it's still here.
Oh, did you? Right, yeah. Right. Why did you club that woodcock to death? What happened? Looked at you wrong, did it?
And then I pretty much killed a woodcock by accident. Yeah. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
I actually felt so bad over that.
He did, yeah. He did. I've been slagging him mercilessly since, folks. But that was that. So that's Cape Clear. That's our story. And remember to pre-order that book as soon as you can. The link will be below or on your screens now. And kudos to Steve for putting the effort in to go and actually do it and create such a fantastic piece of work. We're going to move on now, Owen, and this is where you're going to kind of start gripping off all the Irish birders. Start talking about your garden list and what you can see in Finland and the different birds that you'd see over there that we don't see.
Oh, where do you start? Yeah, I mean, I'm big into my garden lists solely because there's actually birds for once. I suppose I didn't intend on ending up here. It was never the plan to move to Finland until I met a beautiful Finnish girl, and it's just a different world over here. I mean, it really is just chock-a-block full of birds. In terms of both breeding species, there's just numbers of species, and the numbers of birds are off the charts compared to Ireland. And then, in winter as well, just a completely different atmosphere and a different vibe altogether. So we've lived in 2 homes since I've been here. The first one was quite close to a place called Lailahti, which I think I've described before in my blog. If you can imagine the south coast of Ireland, it would be the Ballycotton of Finland, in my opinion. Just this superb wetland habitat surrounded by reed beds and forests and scrub. hundreds and hundreds of species, but it's also on a flyway. And this is just something that you don't get in Ireland. I mean, this is the big thing about birding in Finland, is visible migration. So our house was about 2-3 kilometers just to the west of this site. So everything that was migrating in that way came right over. So you could just bird from the balcony of the house, and that's pretty much what I mean. I think we got about 160 species or something in the space of 2 years living in that house, and missed a lot. And that's the thing. So you could be sitting there, just enjoying a beer and a bit of food on the balcony, and just with the scope set up, and just watch what comes over you. Since then, we've moved out into the countryside for different pace of life, and we now live pretty much in the middle of kind of mixed forest and arable habitat, and right beside a lake. And you're just dealing with, four species of woodpecker pretty much every day in the garden. Raptors in summer, like, osprey and white-tailed eagle breeding right there in the lake beside us. Honey buzzards moving over, marsh harriers, hobbies. It's all the kind of stuff that would make your day if you were in Tecumseh in spring in Wexford. So yeah, I mean, and so I've taken it seriously. It's one of these things where you just kind of, and especially during this kind of COVID stuff, we're all kind of stuck at home. It's been an absolute godsend. You can just look out the window anytime you want, and there are serious birds there to entertain you. So at the moment,
when you say when you take it seriously, I think you have to tell the people about the veritable smorgasbord that you've set up. The feeding stations are something akin to a zoo. Like, they're huge, man. So
it's a serious outlet. I mean, they, in general, Finns take it. The amount of options that they have available, even in just your normal supermarket to feed birds, is incredible. But it's a serious outlay. I'm probably spending, I don't know, 500 or 600 euros every winter on just mountains of food. So I tried to cover everything. Oats for things, ground feeders like yellowhammers and stuff. So when it does get really cold, when there's snow on the ground, all the arable fields around us, they just come straight in looking for oats. So any chaffinches that are left here that haven't left the country, and yellowhammers which do stay. So you get like 120, 150 strong flock coming in. Yeah. But that's selfish as well. That's me kind of thinking someday that flock will have something in it. That's my thinking. There'll be a pine bunting or a black-faced bunting or something in there. You have these like suet logs that the woodpeckers just go nuts for. And I've built my own feeders as well. I built this huge industrial-sized bird table, which I built specifically to try and get in spotted nutcracker, because I knew there was a few in the area, and this autumn finally they came in successfully, and there's now 4, possibly 5 today, I think. Awesome. Coming in every day, and then they're now spending all day. They've centered their territory on the garden and this massive mountain of peanuts that I really buy for them every day.
That's awesome, man.
That's
awesome. Are nutcracker actually, are they easy to connect with if you didn't have them in the garden?
They are easy in the sense that there are very well-known sites. So I mean, you remember you were supposed to come over here the winters ago, and there's a site about half an hour's drive west from me where it's a long established, there's a mix of hazel forest there, and there's a long established feeder, and you can get up to 50 birds on that one feeder. But that's a real concentration. I mean, I think the population is like 2,000 to 4,000 in the entire country, which is 5 times the size of Ireland or so. So they're quite
not that many.
Yeah.
And both subspecies are here. So you have the kind of the thick-billed southern subspecies and the eastern Siberian subspecies. They're both here. They both breed here. and they're patchily distributed. They're not a bird you see routinely. You know, I mean, especially during the summer, you I mean, there's a couple of areas where you would know.
What could you compare them to, like, not in terms of like looks or that, but in terms of like how often you see them, maybe like crossbill or something, or like in Ireland we say.
Yeah, crossbill would be maybe a good example. Chuff maybe would be
okay. Yeah.
But again, because of the habitat, you know, because you're talking about forest, you know, they can be there and you might not see them in summer when they get a bit secretive. They tend to be quite vocal, so you hear this amazing kind of call echoing around the woods, which I always describe as like halfway between a jay and a corncrake. It's
class, yeah.
And I'm hearing that all the time now, actually, outside the window in the living room. So it's just they're I just think they're amazing.
Class looking things.
I spoke about this on my blog recently. It was like there used to be a book which was the photographic record of something like this, rare birds, Britain, Ireland, and right there on the cover was Nutcracker, and in it was a couple of shots of Nutcracker from various records in Britain. And I just saw this and I said, wouldn't that be amazing on Holt or something, you know? And
exactly.
It's the sort of bird that if you ever actually found, you could just retire, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, you'd show up on Cape once in 10 years and they go, he found the Nutcracker.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Drink
Yeah.
for free.
Because of COVID, it's bad.
Yeah. So look, I'm gonna throw a few kind of rapid fire questions about Finland at you, Owen. Is that all right?
Go for it.
Right. Top 5 garden birds that you've had in Finland. Top 5 birds you've had in Finland.
Top 5 garden birds.
Grey-headed woodpecker has to be in that.
Grey-headed woodpecker in my current garden, I love them. Black woodpecker 2, nutcracker, hawfinch, and let's go for a 5th. I think so much. I think I'd have to go with golden eagle. Yeah,
that's fucking class.
You know, it's not one you think of too often, but that they are a pretty astounding bird, especially the first winters. They're just they're absolutely beautiful.
Just to piss me off, how many eagle species do you have in your garden list on?
I have the two breeders on this garden's list.
Very cool, very cool.
The previous garden, because like I said, because it was more of a flyway, so on that garden list I had hawk owl, long-legged buzzard, which I think was something like the 15th for Finland, something like that.
Nice, man.
Short-toed eagle.
Nice.
Which was a good one too.
Very nice.
I think I had a flock of 5 white storks as well, which was
lovely. Yeah,
that's really cool.
So things like that.
And your top 5 birds in the country of Finland. Your favorite top 5
in the country. Oh wow.
And try not to say all owls, because you really could.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's hard not to, but certainly hawk owl, I think, is just there's something dreamy about them.
And Grey Grey and Pygmy and Ten Mams. Yeah.
They're all good, but Hawkie is just. There's something about the way hawkies look at you. He's
like the Batman of owls. Like, he really is. Like, he's just like, you know, they're really cool. Like, to be fair,
they look at you like you're nothing. You know, and because they're diurnal, you know, so you really do get to see them well. So you know, you come across a hawkie and they have this just demeaning look at you, like you're completely worthless. They're just fantastic. Red-headed bunting last year was nice.
I was going to say that. Yeah,
that was nice. I was here for the one of the things that I find really interesting. Almost every year in Finland, there seems to be an influx of something really obvious. Like last year, there was a huge influx of red-footed falcons. Previous years I've been here, there was one that wasn't talked about too much on the internet. I was surprised, was there was a massive influx of white-backed woodpeckers. Something like 800-900 birds came into the south of Finland, which is big numbers. The first year I came here, when I spent my first Christmas, was the year there was like 600-700 hawk owls around the south of the country, which was just bonkers. I mean, you go from seeing your first one on the day you get here, thinking, oh well, that's probably my lot, and then you're just driving around randomly and you're finding your own sitting on wires and things. Just insane. But I was here for the huge influx of Siberian centers.
Oh yeah.
That 2016, I think it was.
16, yeah, October 16.
And that was just insane. I mean, every little bit of dump and weedy ground was picking them up.
There was definitely one in Ireland. There just had to be. Like, there was no way there wasn't.
You would imagine so. Certainly, I would imagine one at least trickled in. But during the middle of that influx, there was also, right in Helsinki city, a black-throated centre turned up.
Class. Was there one in Finland again this year, was there?
There was, yeah. It was around for a week down in Hanko, which is about an hour and a half west of me. I didn't go, but it looked like a very nice, showy individual. But the one I saw was in a wood pile with a Siberian. So I was watching.
Oh, fucking hell, yeah.
What about it?
You bastard.
You get nice ones out. There hasn't, strangely enough, this year there hasn't been an influx of something yet.
Red-flanked bluetail was good numbers, though, wasn't there?
Yeah, a good breeding year, yeah.
Your breeding year was there? Oh, breeding year. Oh, okay, cool.
730, 740 territories were found. This year. Big.
It's another bird I'd kill for. They're fantastic.
And seemed like, I think rustic bunting as well. So there was a lot of them picked up, ringing.
Cool.
What about lesser white-fronted goose? Would that be in your top 5?
Oh, I love them. Yeah, I do love them.
That's one I'd love to find at Lurgan Green.
Oh yeah.
It could happen. It could happen.
They'd build a statue. I mean, there's a couple of birds like that in Europe, I think, that you kind of just say, we might not ever get one again. The way
I would have actually said lesser kestrel was one of those.
I would imagine lesser Kess. Yeah, we should. Lesser Kess is one that's, surely we're just overlooking. I mean, Britain gets one regularly.
But Britain they've not had that many.
Well, it's what? It's every 10 years or something. 15
and
years.
In fairness, in the last decade, they've had a handful anyway, 4 or 5 probably.
But come here, it's that age-old kind of question. How many people look at kestrels in depth? Like,
yeah, true.
You're driving along, you see it hovering. Oh, there's a kestrel. That's about the height of my engagement with kestrel. Like, or unless I'm lucky enough to see one hunting close by. But
that's
John, I look at every single one until I can see the claws.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do. No doubt in that. No doubt in my mind about that. So warrior fight.
I think that's a huge factor, though, in terms of bird finding. That what people are complacent with is some of the hardest stuff to find. So when you have those kind of species pairs, something like lesser kestrel, trying to dig them out from all the kestrels, you do walk by them. I mean, when I first moved to Cork in 2005, like one of the things that I was doing was looking at egrets, because they were still reasonably scarce on the East Coast at that time. So, you'd be driving along, you'd see some egrets, you'd actually look at them, but the Corkies were driving by them, because they were everywhere from their perspective.
Were you looking at them just because you weren't used to them, or was it because you were looking for snowy?
No, I was looking at them because I don't see, even at that
don't
stage.
See many, yeah.
You weren't seeing that many. You'd go to places like Rog and the Bull, and there would be a flock of 12, 15, 20 or whatever, but they weren't everywhere yet.
Yeah.
And so you were looking at them, and so I think in the first month I was living in Cork, I was looking at egrets. Cattle egret in Clonakilty was sitting on a stone wall beside the estuary. There's probably, I don't know, half a dozen Cork birders in the area who probably drove by it that morning. So
because they discounted it because it's something they're kind of used to looking at. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
There are some things you have to train yourself. I think that happened with the buff-bellied pipits. So the kind of the first buff-bellied pipits in Mizzen that were found that time, the 2 that were in Lissa Griffin.
Mm.
Once everyone kind of got their eye on them, then suddenly for the next few years, anytime it
So
seems
what's happened in the last 4 or 5 years?
Well, that's just it. I think it's gone kind of the other way. Like there's less numbers. I think there's a level of cyclability to it, but at the same time, I'm thinking everyone's seen them.
I
they're
know.
not walking down the. Did you not see that? I thought you saw the one in Wex. No,
Where?
Wexford. No.
No, definitely not. No. No,
Um,
I don't even remember that bird being reported. I know of it, but I don't even remember seeing that bird being reported. I think that was a bit before I started. So,
But I mean, if you were able to walk beaches in Ballycotton or Pilmore Strand around now, I think after the weather systems you've had, they're probably there. Or Liscannor in Clare, another spot that's had them in the past. These are people probably aren't doing it as
or the Griff.
the Griff.
Can't beat the Griff.
For context, folks, Owen, we've kind of taken over Owen's patch. Owen used to go to the Maze every year for October, but since he left, we kind of just snuck in there under the radar and took it over for ourselves. Is there a bit? Are you annoyed? Are you or
poachers?
Poacher, there you go. So by way of a quick summary, your top 5 birds were.
Hawk owl. I think we went to
red-headed bunting,
Siberian center, lesser white-fronted goose, and I think then I'd have to go with tree-toed woodpecker or whiteback. I'll say whiteback woodpecker.
Right.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Okay. Third rapid fire question: what is the difference between birding, not bird wise, but would you notice any difference between birding in Finland and birding in Ireland? What would your biggest kind of contrast be?
Like I said, it's all Vismig here, from my perspective. So one of the things you see, they take it very seriously in the sense that they take care of their habitats and they provide infrastructure. So you see bird towers everywhere.
Sure.
Multiple ones. That little spot I said, Lailati, two bird towers on the bay, either side of the bay, and they really take care of their stuff. I've always said it. If you build a bird tower out of wood in Ireland, you'd have some scroats burn it down within a week.
Exactly, within the week.
Whereas they really, they're very socially conscious in the sense that they do these things and they build boardwalks around all of their reserves and they get their scout groups to maintain them and rebuild them every few years and stuff. It's fantastic in that sense. And this is all like to just kind of to facilitate visible migration. So, whereas we kind of we go to TAC and we have to walk around the places, like, you can't get in on their wetlands here. So you're standing on the bird tower watching and birds have to come to you. But they tend to, because you're up on these towers and you tend not to disturb them. So there's that aspect. There's a lot more birders here. I mean, there's a much higher interest. There's a lot more women in birding here, which I find fascinating. I mean, we're doing something wrong in I think in Britain and Ireland.
That's a great point, and actually probably one we should have touched on earlier when we were talking about the Rare and Scarce Facebook group. Women are ridiculously underrepresented. I mean, I can name I can name
one.
I don't think I get to 5. In all seriousness, I don't think I get to 5.
Yeah, and when I say they're there,
three.
When I say they're there, it's not like just at a basic level. I mean, they really do go in for like their twitching and everything and all aspects of the hobby. So something about the culture in Britain and Ireland, I think, is keeping women out of the hobby in the same capacity.
Is it as bad in Britain? I have no idea. I have no experience of Britain. Birding in Britain.
So, I mean, I don't think there's massive numbers there. I mean, I haven't gone through it in detail, but you often see these huge Twitch pictures
Dominated by fellas, yeah.
It's all, it's almost all lads. So I don't know what it is, but whatever they're doing here, they're doing it right. They're getting more people in. I mean, the population is pretty much the same. Ireland is about 5 million, Finland's about 5 million. What's the membership of Birdwatch Ireland is about 5,000.
No, it's I think it's 20,000. I think it's high enough actually. Because I remember I was Wings of an active, that magazine is, and their e-newsletter is an active readership of 15,000 or something. Like it's higher than 5 anyway.
They've grown it since I last checked, but I think that one of the local societies here has about 15,000 people in it. So there really is just a lot more people. And it kind of filters through from very young age, I think. So my wife, for example, has led kind of courses for kids, taking them in birding into the woods and stuff, and you can see it stick with them, when it's done in this way. But some of it could be cultural as well. I mean, the Finns are very big nature people. I mean, their cities are just so much greener than compared to Irish cities. I mean, you're talking about thousands of green spaces, huge patches of old forest. They really do just take care
as opposed to one mode park in the middle of Dublin. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
But they do different behaviors as well. So one of the things I found interesting here is that they keep what are called month lists. So they will actively kind of chase birds like just for a month-long period.
Oh Jesus, no! Get me started on that.
and they'll compete against themselves year on year. So not only will they like every year saying, "Oh, I've never seen that species in May," type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
They'll try to beat their previous. It's very short, and it's a bit weird, but you get the same kind of thing, like like when you guys were slagging off Jer saying, "Oh, he's doing a year list."
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm not doing a year list. So
I've seen he's ashamed to admit it.
I remember being on a bird tower on the 1st of May, and you saw two lads like run up Hampton, and they're scanning everything and pulling each other over. There's a pintail, and you're like, all right, lads, you're doing a month list. Oh no, I just
yeah.
I really like pintails, Yeah, fair enough.
I think if you're ashamed to admit to a certain level of obsession, then maybe there is an issue there you're kind of aware of as well. That's pretty cool. I would say that it sounds like a really, really cool place to bird, and one that probably I'd say actually is neglected in terms of birding tourism. You never hear of people going that way from the UK or Ireland on birding holidays, and I'm sure there are fantastic facilities and species available for those who were to do it. So it's one you should be thinking about, folks. Come on. The other thing is, and it's kind of a topic we're going to end on, because I wouldn't let you get away without discussing this, because you've been literally doing nothing but gripping me off since you put the shots up. Talk to us about bears and wolves, man. Those shots are unbelievable. And I'm going to roll some of Owen's shots across the screen now, folks. This is it's magic.
So this was something that I'd always wanted to do since I moved here. So, you have various companies out in the east of the country, the northeast of the country, which offer these hides to watch large predators, bears, wolves, wolverines. And they're very, very, very popular. It's usually very difficult to get in, with queues months long in advance. Sometimes I've even heard, like you might try to book and they'll say, talk to me in 2 years type of thing. So with one of the few benefits of the pandemic is that that's slashed. There's just empty slots galore. So we just said we'd finally do it. We booked a night in one of these hides. We went up, and it was just astounding. I mean, it just blew all expectations out of the way. It was absolute luxury for a start. This hide with lovely comfy beds in it and everything. But
you sleep in the hide? You stay the night in the hide, Owen?
Stayed a whole night in the hide. You bring your food, you bring your drinks, you bring your camera, your chargers, everything, and you're in there. You get in about 6 o'clock in the evening, and you'll leave about 8 in the morning, and you're pretty much looking at activity the whole night long. I mean, we were waiting around maybe 30 minutes, and the first bear walks in and starts munching. And it's just, it just was, it's indescribable, when you see something like this. The immensity when you see a bear walk out of the woods, it's just enormous, and it's just pure power. This,
I know that feeling.
Yes, yeah. But and then we're watching this bear, and it's fulfilling all expectations, and suddenly the wife just goes, "There's a wolf here." And I was like, "What?" And I was looking out, like, I mean, you're looking out at this huge bog. You can probably see about 1.5 kilometers ahead of you, and I'm looking, saying, "Where? I don't see it. I don't see it." And she said, "Look down," and it was like wandering around right in front of the hide. You could have reached out and pet it. This beautiful, almost orange, young animal, just wandered in front of us, and suddenly then the whole pack came in. This beautiful pale white male and this lovely grey classic wolf looking female came in. You could see you could see her nipples, so she clearly had pups off somewhere, and they just put on a show. We probably got about 6 or 7 bears come in, and these 3 wolves, and then right kind of in the middle of the night, and like this time of year, it's it doesn't get dark. You've got light the whole time, and then she just started howling. She gave this incredible performance, and we were just like, "Oh my God, I can't believe how lucky we're getting." And we got photos of it, and someone else got video of it as well. Just incredible sound, incredible experience. And it was only afterwards that the guy who runs things said, "You're incredibly lucky." I mean, I think you're the second group to ever actually see that we've had, and probably the first to photograph it in about 12 years, I think.
Wow.
So just amazing. Highly recommended. Well, we have to go back. We missed Wolverine, so we're going back.
Is it expensive, Owen, out of curiosity?
Depends on how you look at it, to be honest. I mean, I think it was 170 euros per person for the night.
I would pay that. I would 100% pay that.
Yeah. It's only like what, €12 an hour or something. And I think the accommodation back at the camp, where you say if you wanted to stay the next night, because you're usually, if you've been up all night, you're knackered. I think it was only 50 quid for the night for like a room with 4 beds in it. So it was pretty reasonable, I thought. But the thing is to get there, I mean, you're talking at least an 8-hour drive from Helsinki region to get to these kind of areas. So it takes a bit of planning, but it was a phenomenal experience. Right up there, one of my all-time top wildlife experiences.
They're bucket list species, man. They're bucket list species.
They're incredible. Incredible.
That's the way I put them. So look, we're going to end there, folks. I have to really, really thank Owen for coming on. That has been one of my all-time favorite episodes. Highly entertaining, highly enjoyable for us. I tell you, you really shine a spotlight on Finland. It just sounds like a magical place to be, and somewhere that I think we'll do a vlog there in the future, folks. Watch this space. Give us a year or two till we kick the COVID habit. But
once the planes start flying.
Yeah, definitely. So Owen, thank you very, very much from myself and Brian, and thank you from Peter, who again apologizes for not being here, but thanks for coming on. It's sincerely appreciated. And thanks for allowing us to have our first ever Facebook broadcast, and we hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, Owen, and we also hope that you enjoyed it. The single fan of ours that's out there, we hope you liked it. Please, as ever, I'm going to ask you to like, share and subscribe, be that on Twitter, Facebook, or whatever social media media platform you'd like. We'd also really, really like to ask you to specifically subscribe to the YouTube channel, because that helps us out a lot. It gives us traction, allows us access to certain things that we may not have access to at the minute. So yeah, please like, share and subscribe. Owen, thank you very, very much for coming on. Two in the hand fans, stay classy out there.
Thanks for having me.
Brian, tagline, finish, come on.
What?
Say something classy and something smart to finish it off eloquently.
Stay classy.
Say, take care of yourselves.
Take care of yourselves, everybody.
Bye, guys.
All the best.